questions by definition. Okay, you may start now.
Okay, good afternoon, professors. I'm going to start presenting my research study, which is about the effectiveness of storytelling as a youth training strategy to improve EFL adults' learning listening skills. Okay. The setting of my study was an intermediate English 1 level course here in Santo Tomás University, and it was composed by 20 students from different programs. The reason behind my choosing of storytelling was that I noticed that these students have a low level of listening comprehension. According to a compulsory diagnostic test that they had to take at the beginning of the course. My recent question was, what is the effectiveness of storytelling as an ear training strategy to improve the Chilean adults' EFL learners' listening comprehension levels? And to answer this question, I came up with the following general objective, that was to determine the possible effects of storytelling on a group of Chilean adults' EFL learners' listening comprehension levels in certain type of listening tasks. My specific objectives were, firstly, to identify the initial listening comprehension proficiency levels of these Chilean adults EFL learners, and then to compare and evaluate the students' initial listening comprehensions with their listening proficiency after the application of the storytelling strategy. Okay, the assumption was that storytelling could have a positive effect on these students' listening comprehension levels. And according to Nelson, 1989, the combination of language, story, and metaphor can strengthen listening awareness, and then can active listening as they were exposed to a more complex language. The conclusion of this study is that it stands to constitute a useful tool for English teachers in Chile due to the lack of current research and data available in this area, particularly about the effects of the storytelling strategy in adult learners, because I just couldn't find some research regarding children here in Chile, and only I could find this piece of research in foreign countries, focusing on adult learners. I couldn't find any piece of research here in Chile. Okay, the main concept to consider that are addressed by this study is, firstly, storytelling, that is the interactive art of using stories to promote comprehension of the students, in this case, we're listening comprehension. Using body language and other resources to create an image on a student's mind in order to convey understanding. Also, I could find that was a part of the storytelling, the conversation storytelling, that was defined by Norik 2000 as a pre-storytelling in order to contextualize the topic of story in order to engage the students. Then the listening comprehension, that is the understanding of main ideas and key points of an audio, and the listening comprehension proficiency levels that are according to the Council of Europe 2001 begins from the A1 level to C2 level. My methodology and my piece of research has a socio-kinetical paradigm, and according to Arnold, this paradigm intends to transform a reality within a community. In this case, my study that they have to overcome these weaknesses to reach a different level. Also, this study follows a mixed approach. Nandes et al. And Johnson et al. And I chose this approach in order to legitimate the use of multiple approaches in order to be able to answer the research question. And also, it mixes the two designs. It mixes actual research design and experimental design. Actual research because it was conducted a treatment after the placement test and before the post-test. And it was intended to improve the students' reality regarding this skill. And also, it mixes aspects from the transformative design because the data collection and the organization of the data was done following a quantitative approach, but the interpretation of those results were following a qualitative, interpretive point of view in order to arise inferences regarding these results. The scenario and subjects of this study was 10 students that were randomly selected to take the placement and post-test, and the students were from different programs. The procedure, it was the application of the placement test, the treatment, and the post-test. The data collection techniques, as I said before, the placement test was taken from the listening section of the CAP, and the post-test also was taken from the listening section of the CAP. The data analysis technique was following the CAP descriptions and the Cambridge converting table score scale in order to convert these both instruments results with the scale score from Cambridge in order to identify the common European framework references for the students' levels. The consideration of trustworthiness is that both instruments were part of a standardized test, and it promotes content validity because it has a measurable concept that it can be found in literature, and for that reason it also promotes content validity. This variable is presented in the literature, to be more specific in the common European framework of references for linguists. Also, it ensures reliability because as being a standardized test, it has been applied different times. And for that reason, it's measures repeated, and for that reason, it ensures the reliability of the results and also the objectivity of being part of the mainstream usual exams. It ensures the objectivity of the results, also as being a standardized test. These are my results. Firstly, in the placement test, the students that took A1 level of listening comprehension level was only 2, and the students that obtained an A2 level of listening comprehension were 7. And only there was one student who could obtain a B1 level on listening comprehension. But after the treatment, the post-test results run different data. There was 9 students who could obtain an A1 level, and there were 3 students that could obtain an A2 level of listening comprehension. And there were 7 students who could obtain a B1 level of listening comprehension. And this is the scale. As I said before, there was the majority of students in the placement test that could obtain an A2 level. And according to the European framework, as they were part of an intermediate 1 level course, they were below level. But after the treatment, the post-test results suggest that the students are at level as they could obtain a B1 level on this skill. Regarding the data analysis, the results drawn from the placement test suggest that the students were multi-level EFO students. There were 3 levels presented in the data, A1, A2, and B1. This can be suggested by the lack of practice that these students had in listening tasks. And also, after the treatment, there was an increase to a 70% of the total of the group who exceeded a B1 level of listening comprehension skills. This increase might be a result of the treatment, as early as 1979 suggests that storytelling is an excellent strategy to improve students' active listening skills, as they are exposed to a more complex language in a natural format of conversational learning. The conclusions that I drew was that storytelling strengthens listening awareness, and therefore literary and listening comprehensions are increased. Also, it wasn't possible to determine to what extent the storytelling was effective, and it wasn't possible to discard any other factors, because are being part of an English course, they were a natural process that students would learn. For that reason, it wasn't possible to determine to what extent the storytelling was effective. The limitation of these studies, as I said before, that is that could be other factors that may influence on the students' results. For instance, before taking the placement test, the students didn't practice. They were told that they were going to take a placement test, but they didn't know the format of these placement tests. Also, as they didn't have enough practice on listening tasks, they were low results on the placement tests. Also, another limitation of the time constraints, because I couldn't be able to take the placement and posters to the whole course. For that reason, I had to select randomly 10 students and ask them to stay before the formal English classes during the placement and the posters. Also, for that reason, I had problems for accessing to all the participants. Also, another limitation could be that as a natural process of an English course, the students receive a lot of input regarding English, for my own part and for my partner practitioner, that was Herman, that was also studying storytelling strategy as with a different focus. He was focused on the vocabulary acquisition. For that reason, this fact could have influenced students' results as they gain more vocabulary, they could understand more words, and then they could perform better in the listening comprehension posts. The suggestion for further reasons is to include an experimental group in order to discard the other possible factors that could influence the students' listening comprehension levels. I couldn't apply the experimental group because of time constraint and for ethical considerations that it wasn't being ethical to give a benefit to just one part of the students and then leave the rest only with the traditional instruction. Okay. My metacognitive analysis regarding the research study is that my strength was about my previous knowledge about the teaching strategies, because I reviewed the literature about storytelling before conducting the research study. And according to Hernandez et al. 2014, when you have a previous knowledge about the topic you are interested in, then the set of objectives is done in an easy way. Also, one of my weaknesses was difficulties to analyze the data, because I didn't have the knowledge about statistic analysis, as McKay and Gass 2005 suggests that it is important to researchers to have a knowledge statistical analysis from a statistical coursework or from a statistical expert. For that reason, I just organize the data using quantitative approach, and then the interpretation of the result was done in a qualitative way in order to raise inferences to answer better the question, the research questions. Okay, one of my challenges is to become more proficient using a statistical software as Word Excel. Regarding the internship, one of my strengths was that I always encourage engagement from future students, and according to Harmer, if students are engaged, if they are genuinely interested and involved in the classroom, they could learn a lot better because they are not just doing the things because they are in the classroom. They also are actively involved in the lesson. One of my weaknesses with the concept of weakness by Marzano 2012, because as the tutor told me that sometimes I seemed disconnected in some parts of the lesson. For that reason, one of the strategies that I could implement is to develop more my weaknesses and to start implementing the scanning of the classroom, monitor better students, and to have a better classroom management. And that is my work.